into a cohesive meal.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
For too long, American Indian tribes have faced a competitive disadvantage when litigating against powerful forces. With its American Indian law and policy practice, Robbins Kaplan, LLP, seeks to redefine excellence for high-stakes litigation in Indian country. They have worked hand in hand with tribes to implement the Tribal Law and Order Act, fighting against diminishment of tribal lands and natural resources, and improving public safety on reservations. The Robbins Kaplan American Indian Law and Policy Practice serves tribes and individuals on commercial, government investigations, agency and tribal boundary disputes, as well as personal injury. Founded and led by former United States Attorneys Brendan Johnson and Tim Purdon, their American Indian Law and Policy Practice exists to bring justice to tribal clients whose claims in the past have been dismissed or ignored due to their underdog status. If you or your tribe are facing legal issues, contact robinskaplan.com or call toll-free at 1-800-553-9910.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Hey, Ogama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN 350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN 350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for some light snow overnight with a low around 5, Saturday partly cloudy with a high near 11, and Sunday sunny with a high near 12. The Great Wall Restaurant in Edina provides a delicious taste of Szechuan and Mandarin cuisine. They have some delicious meat and seafood options plus veggies, fried rice, and noodles. The Great Wall Restaurant's located just north of 50th and France on the Edina-Minneapolis border. Order online at greatwalledina.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
They are going to become more brutal.
Because all the hippies are trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake. Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade, which means distant thunder. My colonized name is Robert Pilot, and we discuss local and national news, Native news and events. And as you know, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Midtown Phillips Neighborhood Association. You could join them on Tuesday, January 25th for a community discussion with Council Member Jason Chavez and Park Board Commissioner Becky Alper at 6:30 p.m.
Hey, that's awesome. Why don't we get going here? I know Ogama's on the spot there where she did some live news today. So why don't we jump in right away with Ogama with the news. Welcome, Ogama.
Hi, Buju, Anine, Robert, Wendy. I'm Ogamaganui for all of our listeners. That means Strong Golden Eagle Woman, and I'm a member of the Red Lake Nation in northern Minnesota, which is where I am tonight. I'm coming to you live from Bemidji, Minnesota. I wish I could have gone live with footage today from the Clearbrook commemorative event at the Clearbrook Enbridge Line 3 terminal in northern Minnesota. However, the weather here today was brutal. It was freezing, it was windy, it was cold, and the audio just wasn't really high quality for that. I know they struggled with the same concurrent event that they had down in the Twin Cities at the DNR offices. Robert, did you get a chance to talk to anybody or see any of the footage coming out of there?
No, unfortunately, I was working and then I got a pedicure.
Wow. All right. I'll take your word for what you did today. Winona LaDuke and a lot of really other great activists spoke, as well as Representative Jake Hornstein also spoke at the Twin Cities event. Today up north, Don Goodwin and Frank Bebo spoke, and we did prayer, and there was a drum, and we just held space. But I think the best part about this event, the aquifer breach anniversary 1 year ago, Enbridge Energy purposefully or knowingly violated their permit from the Minnesota DNR and dug their trench too deep. They were supposed to dig it between 10 and 12 feet, and I believe they dug it 18 to 20 feet and punctured an artisan aquifer. They've been trying to get it closed for about a year, and they announced on Tuesday that they were able to close it, but Enbridge closed it by pouring a bunch of concrete into it or cement to stop the water flow. So I'm not entirely sure how that counts as fixing an aquifer or how that would be a permanent fix as well, or if it's a temporary fix. But they did announce yesterday, both the Minnesota DNR and Enbridge, that they had closed that aquifer. However, we held space today on the 1 year anniversary, and there's a company that's working with Enbridge that has trucks that come in and out. We've seen lots of trucks of very heavy cement sludge that were coming out of that area. But I think the best part of the day was one of those trucks happened to get stuck as we were standing there, and it blockaded the driveway of the Line 3 terminal / aquifer breach. And it was quite hilarious for all people who were there. We couldn't have blockaded it better ourselves. It was pretty great. It was good. There's going to be more information coming out about both those events, I'm sure. It takes time to put footage together. So definitely take time to check out Honor the Earth and Indigenous Environmental Network, as I know that both of those places are sharing as much video and photo footage as they have for both of those events today. And also make sure you're keeping up to date with what's happening with Line 3, even if you're one of our listeners in Wisconsin or Michigan, because the Line 3, the damages and things that happened during the construction of Line 3 could very well happen in Wisconsin and Michigan, as the DNR has recently filed their environmental impact statement to be permitted to move the Line 5 pipeline off of the Bad River Reservation in northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, pardon me. And then environmental impact statement, as you start to read it, it's just eerily similar to what's happening here in Minnesota. So if you're in Wisconsin, make sure that you're taking the time to learn the basics about how Line 5 is going to affect Michigan, or excuse me, I don't know what state we're in today, how Line 5 is going to affect Wisconsin. Next Thursday from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., Stop Line 5 is hosting an event called Learn the Basics and How to Testify. Again, that event is by Shut Down Line 5, Protect the Water. And you can learn the basics of what the dangers of Enbridge's Line 5 are, namely that it endangers the Great Lakes, as well as get some training on how to testify on the DNR hearing that's happening in early February 2nd. So keep an eye out for that. If you are looking to do something to you know, we always talk about the new green revolution, right? And how hemp is important, and that there's alternatives to those kinds of things. So Winona'sHemp.com is having an event coming up Tuesday, February 15th. It is going to be an online class and curriculum called Hemp, the New Green Revolution. And it will be an totally online course, which includes all course materials, online reading, and videos. They're all offered through Google Classroom. It's going to start Friday, February 15th and run through April 27th. And then I do believe if you go online, there is a cost for the course. However, I think they do have some scholarships available for Native farmers and other people who could possibly qualify. So make sure you scoot over to Winonah's Hemp and figure out to learn more about the new green revolution. And speaking of things that you can apply for, the IHS scholarship, the Indian Health Service Scholarship Program, is now accepting scholarships for support for the 2022 and 2023 academic year. You can submit your online application and upload documents by February 28th of 2022 at 7 p.m. All documents do have to be in the system by that date, and they do not accept mail-in documents. So make sure you go to ihs.gov/scholarship/apply if you would like to review the IHS scholarship options and get those submitted for those who are going into healthcare, which is desperately needed right now. Robert, do you remember the McGirt case that happened in 2020 in Oklahoma?
No, refresh our memory.
So the McGirt case in 2020 in Oklahoma is the Supreme Court that ruled that the tribe could prosecute non-Indians for crimes committed against Native Americans in a large part of eastern Oklahoma. And right now, on Friday, just today, the Supreme Court agreed to consider limiting that decision. So the High Court just ruled in 2020 that whole eastern portion of Oklahoma basically remains and operates as an Indian reservation. But now they're agreeing to consider limiting this decision, which normally does not happen so soon. From what I'm reading about this issue, but the case will be argued in April. Basically what they're saying is the state is arguing that crimes are going uninvestigated and unprosecuted because federal authorities, who are the authorities who can bring criminal cases on tribal land, are actually overwhelmed in Oklahoma. So it was ruled that the whole eastern portion of Oklahoma was going to be under federal jurisdiction because it's tribal land. But now the state is taking it to the Supreme Court because they're overwhelmed. Wow. So I guess it's an interesting thing that's kind of happening. And I'll give some more updates on that on Monday if I can, or as we go into April. Yeah.
We should talk more about that because aren't they a sovereign nation? What's the feds doing in there?
Yeah, it's definitely something. I think it operates differently than it does here in Minnesota, but maybe we'll have to get somebody from Oklahoma to come on and talk about it.
We'll be right back. This is Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
Hey, Olgama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN 350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN 350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Aho, relatives. My name is George McCauley, Umaha Nation. I'm a citizen of the Omaha Nation in Nebraska. As we head into wintertime, many of us will be back together indoors. It's important to make sure you receive your COVID booster shot. Older Americans are more at risk for complications for COVID-19. All 3 COVID vaccine boosters have been approved. Find a vaccine site by calling 651-304-9986 or go to vaccineconnector.mn.gov.
January is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month, and American Indian women in Minnesota are twice as likely to develop cervical cancer. Native Roots Radio is partnering with Minnesota's SAGE Breast and Cervical Cancer Program to talk about cervical cancer. Watch live Monday, January 24th at 7:30 p.m. on Native Roots Radio's Facebook page. Guests will include public health experts within the American Indian community who will share important information about cervical cancer in our Native communities. Tune in Monday at 7:30 p.m. on Native Roots Radio's Facebook page.
I heard sex trafficking happens a lot in Indian country. What is that?
Here are some of the real reasons why sex trafficking happens in Indian country. Unequal gender roles that were forced on us by colonization. Communities don't have enough resources. Silence around domestic and sexual violence. Lack of attention and justice for missing and murdered Indigenous people. There's a lot of behavior that keeps our communities out of balance. These are just a few true reasons why Native communities are targeted by traffickers. When these acts of violence happen in our communities, it opens us all up for exploitation.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot. Yes, we're back, and we're waiting for Mary Kunesh to come on. She just texted me and needs the link again.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Alliant Energy, powering beyond.
All right. So, hey, so maybe we can talk a little bit more about that. Or Wendy, why don't you talk about the guest you're having? That's something we could talk about.
Yeah, I'm excited. Usually on Friday, I do my own little piece of Fun Friday episode here on the Sacred Animal section. But today we're going to have an update about Bruno. If you remember Bruno, he was the serval African cat that was found in Massachusetts. And we're going to have Tammy Thies on, and she's the founder and executive director at the Wildcat Sanctuary here in Sandstone, Minnesota. So she's going to tell us a little bit about what happened to Bruno, how he came about to, her and her rescue organization to find him and bring him back here to Minnesota, and how he's doing.
All right. Hey, so we got State Senator Mary Kunesh on, and want to welcome her and thank you so much for being on the show.
Happy to be here again this evening.
It's a cold one, and now it's snowing here too. I hate to start out by talking about the weather, but kind of trivial stuff. But it's something for us Minnesotans to always talk about.
Always something in Minnesota to talk about when it comes to weather. I have not even been outside today, but the wind has been howling around my house all day long. After we're done here, I have to go pick up my dog, and I'm like, do I need to wear 3-4 layers when I go out? I don't know.
Well, it depends if you have to walk, but if you're walking to the car, nah. But yeah, well, I mean, I got out today and I got a pedicure, and here I am.
Ooh la la!
Yeah, it's a regular thing for Robert, but I don't think you've had one since COVID. Isn't this your first one?
Yeah, the nails were really long, and the the person was really disgusted, so we had to tip her big. But yeah, so it's weird. And Ogama is up in the deep north, covering protests outside, and she's like 8 or 9 months pregnant. I don't know, 10 months pregnant or something like that.
10 months. So funny. I'll give you a hint. I couldn't zip my snow pants today. I have over the shoulder snow pants, and they fit, but I couldn't zip them. That was how that went today.
Wow. Another little Indian being born. That's awesome. So, hey, what's going on? We have like MMIW stuff happening. I don't know. Is there a march this year? I think I heard it might be canceled. Have you heard anything about that, Mary?
I think at this time they're not planning on doing an in-person march again, but it could change. I mean, when you look at the numbers of COVID, especially in that community where so many people are really vulnerable to the virus and everything else, we have to just be super, super careful. So I think at this time they're not planning on it, but it could. You never know. If our numbers go down and folks are willing to take really strong precautions, it could happen, but I don't know that we are at this time.
Yeah, that's sad, but we don't know. We don't know if there's another variant coming right behind this one, and yeah, it's just we're in flux right now. Wendy got us our N95 masks, and now like my nose fits in it, but it's hard to breathe. I don't know.
With all that facial hair.
Yeah, that's what you call this nose. Yes, the facial hair. Um, but so what's going on? What else is going on? I mean, we got legislation is going to be picking up here soon, and I know we talked a little bit last week about a lot of the bills that you're going to be championing. And I know we had Representative Heather Keeler on. I got Monday or Tuesday, I can't remember which day. They're all starting to melt in. I think it was Tuesday, and talked about that. And we know you're big on education and our Native people. I just got to tell you a quick thing. I was in Madison talking to Republican senators about a bill in Wisconsin, and I think these are one of those Republican bills that they throw against the wall in every state, and that's the what was that again? It was the what bill was that? Anyways, it's about the race, the race bill that they keep on.
Critical race theory?
Thank you. Yes. And then that could affect a law that really promotes education, Native education in Wisconsin. So it was, it's not going to be passed because the governor is Democrat in Wisconsin. So it'll be vetoed. But these are these laws. And Wendy's dealt with these laws with animals that they just copy and paste and throw in there in every state and try and either fire up the voters, the Republican voters, or just try to get the bill through. It's kind of ridiculous.
It is, and it is literally sweeping the country with these formulated bills that the Republican Party says, don't tread on us. Don't tell us what we can do and we can't do. But they are so willing to try to modify and put into law all these different restrictions of what we can and can't do. The women's right to an abortion is huge across the nation right now. And we're feeling it in Minnesota. The ability for a woman to choose her reproductive process and health is really under fire. And I know we're going to see that kind of an attack. With education, it'll be critical race theory. And there's a lot of people that they just don't understand what it is. And they think we're trying to rewrite history when in fact, they're not even telling the real story, the real events that happened, the whole cause and effects of colonization. I just did a presentation on my Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Task Force to a church organization last night. And it's generally a more conservative church, but this was more progressive within that faith. And I started out by saying we really have to go back to the doctrine of discovery and the papal decrees that sent these explorers out, and the Pope and the Emperor said, any land you step on and you plant the flag in, you now can claim that for Christianity, and anyone on that land that says no, you are now their ruler and you can do with them as you please, as well as any of the jewels or any of the treasures that you find there. So the people and the land, instantly, and just because they were a white European person stepping on a land, made them now the ruling empire of these European countries. And you could see people just kind of looking at me like, whoa, I never thought of that. Nobody ever put it to us like that. And so when we talk about colonization, I think a lot of people go back to like the original 13 colonies, but it's not that. It's that manifest destiny attitude that really started the atrocity. And it's just not North America. I mean,
Right.
Australia, New Zealand, Africa. I mean, any continent that European explorers stepped on or discovered, they became, the indigenous people were, their days were numbered. And so we really do have to start going all the way back and really addressing where this all began and how it started.
Wow, and that's a really good point. As you were saying before, you said that the people looked in shock when you were giving them a history lesson. Is that we either get a response of like shock or in denial by it, and then take offense that their relatives have done it. And I always we used to have a promo for our 2-hour show, and at the end of it, Winona LaDuke would say, "We're the home team. We've been here over 10,000 years." And I think of that because John Wayne I remember he was quoted years ago saying, they didn't know what to do with it. This was paradise, and we're taking care of it, and we deserve it. And I think that's the attitude not that long ago, 10, 20 years ago.
Right. They're just living in those primitive huts, and they're using, they don't know about gunpowder and slaughtering all the buffalo or ownership of land, cutting up the land into little plots and saying, you own this, you own that. And then they start fighting over it. That was not the mentality. And so, it's just, I'm just really glad that when folks invite me to go out and speak about the MMIW, they really have open minds. They really want to know. They want to understand, how did this happen? Why did we not know it? What can we do to help? And they ask really good questions. And I would say that the average age of many of the groups that I go out is probably mid-60s or older. And they want to know. They really want the truth. They don't want us to sugarcoat it at all.
Exactly. Hey, let's talk some more about this, Mary. Great talk. I kind of want to talk about people like Ho-Chunk that I think people, natives and non-natives, it's the opposite. If you're not 60 years and older, you don't realize that the Ho-Chunk should be one of the recognized tribes of Minnesota. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. You're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and we'll be right back with State Senator Mary Kunesh.
Stay with us.
Aho, relatives. My name is George McCauley, Umaha Neshinga. I'm a citizen of the Omaha Nation in Nebraska, but reside in the Twin Cities area. As we head into wintertime, many of us will be back together indoors. It's important to make sure you receive your COVID booster shot. Those 65 and over are recommended to receive their booster dose. Older Americans are more at risk for complications for COVID-19. So get your booster shot to make sure you stay safe and healthy this winter. All 3 COVID vaccine boosters have been approved. Find a vaccine site by calling 651-304-9986 or go to this website, vaccineconnector.mn.gov. 651-304-9986 or go to vaccineconnector.mn.gov.
Hey, Wendy, what are we doing for dinner after the show?
How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me, Wen. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
January is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month, and American Indian women in Minnesota are twice as likely to develop cervical cancer. Native Roots Radio is partnering with Minnesota's SAGE Breast and Cervical Cancer Program to talk about cervical cancer. Watch live Monday, January 24th at 7:30 p.m. on Native Roots Radio's Facebook page. Guests will include public health experts within the American Indian community who will share important information about cervical cancer in our Native communities. Tune in Monday at 7:30 p.m. on Native Roots Radio's Facebook page.
This is David from The David Pakman Show, where we expose the hatriots, liars, and Trumpists on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Now, more than ever, we are being faced daily with the topic of human mortality. And for many people, estate planning has been top of mind. Getting your estate planning done now can be easy and cost-effective. Schroman Law offers virtual options for initial consultations so that new clients can safely initiate the process. With many facing uncertain financial situations, Schroman Law also offers affordable fees for legal documents. Learn more at schromanlaw.com. That's SCHROMEN law.com.
This is Frank Brown, owner of Minuteman Press Uptown. We've been working with political campaigns and nonprofits for years, helping with their printing and promotional needs. Year after year, campaigns and organizations come back to us because we deliver on time. Our team has over 100 years of experience, and we have 2 graphic designers on staff. We know running a political campaign is very dynamic with last-minute deadlines. At Minuteman Press, we are ready for the last-minute job and will make it happen. We print T-shirts, lawn signs, door hangers, bumper stickers, lit pieces, postcard mailers that we can assist with targeting and so much more. We are the only minority-owned union print shop in Minnesota, and we stand up for racial, social, and economic justice. Choose the company that matches your values for your political campaigns, printing, and promotional needs. We have a 5-star rating on Google with over 150 reviews. See what our customers are saying about us. Call Minuteman Press Uptown at 612-870-0777 or visit mpuptown.com. Minuteman Press Uptown. We print everything.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for some light snow overnight with a low around 5. Saturday, partly cloudy with a high near 11. And Sunday, sunny with a high near 12. Well, these long, frigid nights are perfect for getting cozy with a new book from Next Chapter Booksellers. The friendly staff are great at making recommendations no matter your age and taste. Plus, you can order just about any book online. Located off Snelling and Grand in St. Paul, more at nextchapterbooksellers.com. That's nextchapterbooksellers.com.
This is Winona the Duke of Honor the Earth, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio. I'm awake.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot. Hey, welcome back.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Midtown Phillips Neighborhood Association.
All right. Hey, stuff going on in the Midtown Phillips
Neighborhood Association.
Hey, we got State Senator Mary Kunesh on here, and really nice, lively talk. I know the people here on Facebook and YouTube have really enjoyed the history lesson. Or are you speaking your truth? And, I'm 60 years old and I love history, but I really know for a fact that I did not learn this history in school. And so we have a whole couple generations, at least, of people, if you weren't told by your parents that lived through it or grandparents that lived through it, that have no idea what Native Americans or that part of, I want to put up America's history was all about. They're in movies and things like that. They're the heroes, and the Indians are the bad guys, chasing down women and stagecoaches and all these things. And Ford, the director, really made it. And John Wayne starring in all those movies really made history as skewed.
Yeah, I mean, it's the story written from a white man's perspective about how the settlers settled the land and pushed back those awful heathen wild Indians, and it's the story of success, that manifest destiny. Whoever dominates is going to win, and if you don't win, then you're the loser, and tough luck back in the days. I mean, you think about it, most of the Native Americans, if they attacked white people, it was because they were protecting their land and protecting their people and their way of life. And that's the story of war. I mean, that's the story of war. Look, we went to Vietnam. Were we justified to go there and say in the spirit of democracy, or Afghanistan? It's always survival of the fittest, and sometimes those that don't survive, there isn't an even playing field even. And so it's through that perspective of white colonial men who always win and come out on top.
Right. And then that's who writes the history.
Yeah,
Winners
that's
always write
exactly
the
right.
history. And yeah, so yeah, it's crazy too, because there was a documentary that used to be on Netflix that was out a while ago, probably about 10 years ago, called Real Indians, and it talked about the Indians, reals with a Z, and it talked about the Indians in movies and how we were portrayed, and how what we're talking about right now. But I mean, it's all skewed. I mean, I would even like to say, because the elections are coming up, and again, I was in Madison talking to our lawyer, and we're talking about the next presidency, and it's just like, if Biden's going to be too old. And I was talking about, will Hillary run again? And no, she won't. But I think of Hillary and the press for the last 30 years of attacking her, since her husband was president. The press was supposed to be liberal, and yet, they're owned by billionaires. So I don't know how the liberal left is supposed to be running the press, because we look at the news, Wendy and I, almost every night and just go, oh, wow. Or the reason why we started the show is we'd go to protest, or we were at Standing Rock and being a water protector, and we'd hear the national news and local news talk about something totally different that happened that we saw with our own lying eyes. So the media has a big part of the amplifying these untruths.
Yep, they do. And now that now that we're starting to talk about it and really alert people to the real stories, it's their obligation, it's their responsibility to tell the honest to God truth. If you look at some of the far right news and radio and television, they still have their own skewed versions of what happened, and we see that daily in the investigation of what happened last January at the Capitol. I mean, we still have Republican elected officials here in Minnesota that won't even admit that Biden won the presidency, that Biden is the bona fide president of the United States. They won't even say it. They won't admit it. They won't admit that it was an insurrection. And so we're just in such a bizarre state of being. But I think every generation has something.
Right.
Has something that's twisted. And unfortunately, we're in the midst of all of this. I mean, there's still people that won't admit that the virus is really here, or that masks make a difference, or that the vaccination is going to make any difference. I just don't understand that, when there are thousands, if not millions and millions of people around the world who have died from it. In the district that I represent, two of the men who ran one against me, and then my state representative, both of them passed away from the virus. And they were anti-vaxxers. They were, they denied that, they drank that water. And so I wish that people would just stop and really take a deep breath and look at the common sense of it all.
Well, it's crazy. And as you were saying, I thought of a few things. One of them was when I was in Madison this past week talking to senators, Republican senators, there was no one in the Capitol wearing masks, one. Two, there was no security to go into the building, and that kind of blew me away. And then whenever we talked to a Democrat, it was over a Zoom or some online thing. We were back at the law office. So just the discrepancies. And there's a couple things that you were saying, and one of them too, I'll just back it up in history, is people are in shock. But we just saw a 60 Minutes piece about Anne Frank, and people are in shock of what happened to the Jews. Well, Hitler got that from the United States and what they did to Native Americans.
Yep. He took it right from the playbook, right from the United States playbook.
and Hitler admitted that. So that we don't ever talk about that either. But yeah, there's just so many different intertwining things. And I think about 1968 too, in my lifetime, as probably being the most craziest time until now, or at least for 4 years. And we recovered from that, and I hopefully will recover from these last 4 years. But because I think what we need to hopefully happen again is make racists afraid again, and they're not. They're speaking as if their truth is really
Supreme.
truthful, and yeah, it's just it's crazy.
Yep, absolutely. It's really scary. It is really scary.
Yeah. So it's got to be hard to, for one, being a woman to walk into the state capital of Minnesota, and two, being a Native American woman. And I know our lieutenant governor talks about that. And, how do you feel? Because I know it's a place where she talks about where we're not welcome and we don't belong. And it's really, you have to take a deep breath every time you walk through those doors to do your job.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's a little bit different for me in that I don't appear like the typical, what people would, characterize as a Native American woman. I don't have black straight hair. My hair is curly, and I don't have all the characteristics that are typical of a Native American person. I know that when State Representative Susan Allen, the first Native American elected in Minnesota, they were very dismissive and very disrespectful of her. Almost like she was invisible and they weren't going to listen to her. And it wasn't really until there were a number of us together that they realized, they needed to start to listen to us. But we also had leadership that was validating the fact that the Native American caucus, had some sway in what was being done. I think a lot of times women in general at the legislature are not taken seriously, and a lot of the young women, the ones that come in with a fire in their belly and they're going to change things for LGBTQ and children and families and all of these things, and they sort of poo-poo them or pat them on the head like, oh, aren't you a cute little poodle? And I know that, that we've seen that happen. I mean, just in the last 5 years that I've been an elected official, there was some real overt, disrespect to women in general. Here in Minnesota in the Senate. Oh.
Jamie Becker Finn was, I've heard, I remember, I don't know if it was 2 years ago, but there was certain people that were blatantly attacking her and threatening her, borderline threatening her.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's just, we haven't had Native folks in the state legislature before, so they kind of didn't know what to expect of us. And they certainly didn't expect, these women to stand up and speak their truth over and over and over again and back it up with actual factual information. There's a lot of legislators that spew this stuff, and then when you ask them for the resource, like, where did you get that? Or who did you hear that from? They're just like, I'll get that to you, and then they don't. I mean, I was a teacher, a library media specialist. You had to back everything you wrote in your report up with the facts and with the bibliography. That doesn't happen.
Wow. Yes. Well, Mary, time always flies too fast with us. Really appreciate you being on, and stay warm. And we're supposed to get a lot of snow here too, so get your snowblower ready. And Wendy, who do you have up next?
I have up Tammy Thies, and she's the founder and executive director at the Wildcat Sanctuary in Sandstone, Minnesota.
Yeah, with a great update.
Well,
yeah, exactly. Peeny Gigi, Mary Kunesh, have a great weekend. We'll be right back after this short break.
Stay with us.
Stay warm.
Kogama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN 350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN 350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Navigating COVID while protecting yourself can be difficult. Fortunately, there's a hotline you can call with any questions. The Department of Indian Work St. Paul partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health to open the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. They provide information on vaccines, booster shots, and testing sites. Right now, booster shots are available to anyone over the age of 18 for those who are eligible. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline can also help with housing, food, medical, and educational support. If you or someone you know has questions about COVID-19, vaccinations, booster shots, or testing, please call 651-304-9986. Again, the number is 651-304-9986. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is open for calls Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Call the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline at 651-304-9986.
Bonjour, I am Oshawashko Gijig. I'm from Red Lake Nation, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
Wendy, I don't think your guest howled with us.
I don't think so, but that's okay. Every day before the sacred animal section, we do a howl, and Howling for Wolves has been one of our loyal sponsors for a long time. And I'm really excited today because I don't have to have a section today, but we have Tammy Thies, and she's the founder and executive director at Wildcat Sanctuary in Sandstone, Minnesota. And for those of you who listen to us regularly, I think you'll remember Tammy being on and talking about a serval cat, an African serval cat that was found in the streets of Massachusetts and then brought here to Minnesota to the Wildcat Sanctuary. And Tammy was telling us about that cat. They named him Bruno, but she's here today to give us an update. Welcome, Tammy. It's so great to see you again. How are you?
Good. It's been a busy week, that's for sure. I was very excited that Bruno made national media because it's an issue of sorts that we really want to get out there. People should not be owning exotic cats as pets, and Bruno was lucky to find his way to our sanctuary.
Yeah. Go back and tell our audience how you came about to know about Bruno, a little bit about a serval cat, and we'd love to hear an update. I think I have a picture too that we'll put up there in just a minute of Bruno.
Yeah, we were reached out to by the Massachusetts SPCA, who really rescues dogs and cats. And a woman had been seeing what she thought, and she was correct, an exotic cat roaming the neighborhood, an African serval cat, which can weigh anywhere from 20 to 40 pounds. It's usually found in the grasslands of Africa. It's also known as kind of the cat of spare parts because it has a cheetah-like coat, big fox-like ears, deer-like legs, and it is a wild cat. Unfortunately, here in the United States, we continue to try and domesticate wildlife and keep them as pets. And we think that's what happened to Bruno. And he must have got out of a house and he was starving, and he had obviously had trauma to his leg. He had multiple fractures in his leg and couldn't use it anymore. So we were really thankful that the Massachusetts SPCA was able to trap him, humanely trap him, get him to their shelter. perform medical care, and ultimately they had to amputate his back right leg. And then they reached out looking for a place for Bruno to live the rest of his life. He's estimated to be about 12 months old, so he's going to hopefully live to be 20 years. And we're so thankful they reached out to us. We are an accredited sanctuary here in Minnesota. We don't buy, breed, trade, or sell wildcats. We simply tried to provide them a sanctuary to be wild at heart. So you can see Bruno here. He's a beautiful, beautiful cat, but he's not meant to be a pet. And so unfortunately, he will have one less leg, but kind of what we always talk about in the animal world is animals are born with a spare part always, and animals don't have pity. Bruno does not seem to realize that he's down to 3 legs. He has been walking around his room. He has been playing with peacock feathers. He's got a great appetite, and his incision should be healed enough. By next week, he's actually going to get outdoor access into a habitat. Bruno's only thing he was fearful of is meeting other servals, because being kept as a house pet, he didn't know what he was. And so we're really excited to get him to experience what being an African serval is, learning what he's like, and allowing to stretch his wild side.
Yeah, he really is beautiful. And you could see, for those of you listening, watching online, his back leg is shaved, but his skin also has the spots. Tell us a little bit about that, Tammy.
Yeah, I think people don't really realize with wildcats and even tigers, the spot pattern and the stripe pattern is as unique as our fingerprints are. So that's how we can tell cats apart. And it goes to the skin. So if you were to shave a tiger, just like Bruno here, the stripes would be on the skin, not just the fur. And so that's what you're seeing here. But he's doing extremely well, and he's a really good poster child to why wild animals should never be kept as pets. Our educational motto is keep the wild in your heart, not your home. We need to respect wildlife, and there's so many wonderful dogs and domestic cats in shelters and rescues that need a loving home, that we shouldn't try to domesticate a wild animal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. He is beautiful. Tell us about your sanctuary and how many cats you house there, and how our audience could help you with donations.
Well, wonderful. We house over 100 wildcats, from tigers, lions, servals, caracals, lynx, bobcats, anything that sadly the internet has made it easy to try and make as a pet, but it often does not work out. So owners will call us and surrender those animals. Sometimes it's a legal battle due to zoning ordinances. We are happy to state that it is illegal in Minnesota to own a wildcat, bear, or primate as a pet. We wish there was more wildlife on that list, but at least it's a start. And so we're not open to the public because we're really there to rehabilitate animals. They can't be released back into the wild, but we can release them into indoor, outdoor areas where they get to be wild at heart. And people can sponsor Bruno or any cat at our sanctuary at wildcatsanctuary.org. You can meet every resident, including Bruno, their story, and for as little as $12.50 a month, make a big impact on the care we're providing for our 100+ residents. And we also have a volunteer program. So come spring, we have a lot of gardening to do, a lot of mowing, a lot of grounds maintenance. And so we do have a volunteer program you can check out at the website. But if you love animals, I think the best thing to do is go to our Facebook page, Wildcat Sanctuary, because our staff does live posts all day long. You get to see the vet care we provide, the habitats we provide, food and nutrition, and the fun part, the enrichment, how we bring out those natural behaviors and allow them to play, stalk in a safe manner in their habitats.
Yeah, it really is. And I told you the last time when you were on that I had the privilege to go up to your sanctuary a couple of years back and build a fence because the cats have like an area where they can go inside where it's warm and then go outside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they can come and go. We don't lock them inside unless obviously we have dangerous weather coming, they're trained to go inside and get a treat, but they have free roam. We know, sadly, they're still living behind a fence. We cannot replicate what they can have in the wild, but we can give them the next best thing, being wild at heart and a compassionate, humane alternative. And as we saw with Bruno, most of these exotic cats and wild animals kept as pets aren't receiving the proper vet care. And Bruno wasn't neutered. He didn't look like he had any vet care. Unfortunately, he had been on his own for quite a while and was emaciated. And even though he's a wild animal, since he was imprinted on people, he would not have survived on his own. So Sanctuary, unfortunately, is the only place when they don't work out as pets, but at least we can use his story to hopefully prevent another cat from needing Sanctuary in the future.
Yeah, and you were talking about the enrichment. I was watching one of your volunteers doing a live video on Facebook, and one cat. I mean, they can't use it now, but one cat had a pool. They have been, different platforms they can go on. They have toys in there.
Yeah, we try to give them dynamic space and try as much as we can give them a natural environment. And we have to help that, right? Like you said, by the tigers love pools, multi-level platforms, outdoor caves, and then they get scent enrichment. Cats love to scent mark. So they'll hide different scents throughout the habitats, let the cat explore. We allow them foraging. So we will bring out carcass feedings and chicken leg quarters and things like that, and place them around the habitat so that they can kind of go look for their food. And then we also, in the winter, they even get snowmen filled with tuna, because even wildcats like tuna fish. So our job is to give them a stimulated environment and a little bit back of what they would be missing. We want them to have their choices, to be able to lie down, go inside, play with their own kind, and not be treated like a pet.
That's fantastic. Tammy, I want to thank you again for coming on and giving us the update on Bruno. You've been listening to Tammy Thies she's the founder and executive director at Wildcat Sanctuary in Minnesota, Sandstone, Minnesota.
Thank you.
Located just north of 50th and France, the Great Wall Restaurant has